Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a video request. This video was requested to me by Lady Caska, one of my subscribers, and I think pretty much all of you guys know her. She's all over the place on YouTube. She requested to help get her started in canning, specifically meat. She specifically requested chicken and beef, and that's an awesome way to start. That's actually how I first started. And what I have here is some canned white meat chicken. This is chicken breast. I canned them on August the 3rd of 2019. This is probably one of my favorite things to can, simply because I do a two birds with one stone kind of thing. I'll get a bunch of split breast chicken. I want the meat and I want the skin still on it. Or excuse me, I want the meat with the skin and bones still on it. And then I'll get a couple of those small little chickens, the whole chickens, like the whole complete chicken except for the guts and the head and the feet, and they come shrink wrapped in a bag. I'll get a couple of those as well, and I'll get two of my big stock pots going, and I'll dice up some onions, some carrots, and some celery and put it in there with the water and get a good boil going. And then I'll take all my chicken, I'll put it in there, and I'll let it go for about 10 minutes. Then I pull the chicken out, and then I set it on a cookie sheet to cool. And the reason I do it for about 10 minutes is to go ahead and get the cooking process started. Plus I want to flavor the water a little bit ahead of time. And then what I do is I shred all the meat off the bones. I take all the bones and all the skin and the fat and everything left over that I don't put in here, I throw back in the stock pot, and I crank the heat up to a really good simmer, and I let that stuff go for, it's usually around 6 hours, because usually I'll get a couple of good cases, a couple of good batches. Usually it might be a good 6 to 9 hours I let it boil on the simmer, and the longer it boils, the more intense and the better that chicken broth is. And then while that's going, I'll jar this up. I'll leave an inch head space, and I don't use any of the water out of my stock pots to can this. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is I barely got the chicken cooking, so there's more than enough goodness in this chicken to make its own broth, and you can see that's broth. And this is just water straight from my Berkey. So I put the chicken in here, and I fill it with water from the Berkey, and I put it in the pressure cooker. I crank the heat up. I bring it to 10 psi. I crank the heat up until my steamer starts blowing steam, and it'll a steady hiss for about 10 minutes. Then I'll put the weighted gauge on there, 10 pounds of pressure, because I am at less than 1,000 feet below sea level. And I'll let it go, and I'll watch my dial gauge, and when it gets up to 10, a little bit more than 10 psi, that jiggler will start jiggling. It'll start making all kinds of racket. As soon as that happens, I start my timer for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. That's how long you have to process meat, an hour and a half. And then I'll stay by the stove, and I'll slowly start backing the heat. I'll take it from high down to, medium high, because you want that weight, that jiggler, you want it to jiggle 2, 3, maybe 4 times a minute max. And it's no big deal if it jiggles 15 times for the first few minutes, okay? Or if it jiggles a little bit less than that, especially if you got a dial gauge, because you can use it as backup just to make sure that it doesn't drop below 10 psi. If it drops below 10 psi, you have to start the entire process over again and crank the heat up, get it to pressure, and start your hour and a half over again. Doesn't hurt the food at all. You can can it more than once. It's not a big deal. But once you get it to 10 psi, you stay by the stove and you steady keep adjusting the heat. And after you do this 4 or 5 times, you'll get to know your stove, and you'll know what temperature it needs to be at and how many times you have to adjust it. Mine, actually, it goes pretty quick. So once you get it adjusted down, by the end of the hour and a half, you've almost got your stove burner on like low, maybe a little bit above low, because that pressure and that heat's already built up and it stays inside that aluminum pressure canner. But once it goes for an hour and a half, once your timer goes off, you turn the heat off. Do not touch the canner, just turn the heat off. And you let it slowly come back down to 0 pressure. You watch your gauge, and it slowly comes back down to 0 pressure. Once it's completely at 0, you can remove the weight from the little spout thing, and you can remove, set it to the side. And I let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then I take the lid off, I pull the jars out, I sit them on a towel on the counter there for a minimum of 24 hours to come back to room temperature. Once that happens, I take the jars over to the sink, and I run me some really good soapy water. I completely submerge the jars and have a sponge, and I wash everything, the top, especially these grooves in here. because you can have food residue on these grooves, and that will attract mice and ants and bugs, and you don't want that. So I wash the outside of this thing super, super well. Super well. And I've already taken the ring off by this point, and I wash it real good. I wash my rings, and they go into a big storage box for the next time that I need them. But once I wash them all down real good, I let them dry, then I put them in the boxes, and I put them in the storage. It's that simple. But chicken is by far the best meat that I've canned. I'm anxious to can rabbit. I've heard that it cans really, really well. But chicken, it holds together real good. The texture stays almost, it's hard to tell you're eating canned chicken, okay? Everything else that you can tell that the texture's a little bit off, but the chicken, this stuff makes phenomenal chicken salad, chicken and rice, barbecue chicken. We'll shred it up, make barbecue chicken. Tonight, actually, I've got a jar upstairs. We were going to do it last night, but we didn't have any soy sauce. Got to go get some today. My father's going to make stir fry with canned chicken, and it's delicious. It's really, really awesome. The second thing she asked about was ground beef, and I have two examples here. This one was canned on March the 2nd of 2019. All right, so this is over a couple years old, and this was September the 12th, 2019. All right, you can see they're both ground beef, but there's a difference. This one's dry pack, and this one's wet. Personally, myself, there really isn't a big difference in the taste or the processing to it. I just wanted to do it both ways and try it out. Now, obviously you cook it and you remove most of the grease as much as you can. Now, this looks like I've got an inch thick layer of grease here. I don't. It's stuck around the sides. This is just up on the edge, like the inside of the jar, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but the inside, and I've opened several of these and used them. They're perfectly fine. It looks like there's a whole lot of grease and fat built up. It really isn't. It's literally about twice as thick as a fingernail, and it just runs around the edge for some reason. I think maybe because the edge cools faster, but it looks a whole lot worse than it is. And honestly, it's it's perfectly fine. It's a little bit of flavor. It's good to go. I am saving a few of these. I don't want to use them because I'm going to monitor this and see how long it takes for this fat to go rancid. And like I said, this stuff's over 2 years old. And it's still perfect. Actually, I just had a jar of this last week. We made rotel dip. I dumped it in some Velveeta cheese with some rotel, and it was delicious. Now, this one's easier. Like this, you cook it, you drain it, you fill it up with water to the, or you can use beef broth up to the, leave 1 inch headspace, and you can it the exact same way you do chicken. It's an hour and a half. The process is exactly the same. The only thing that varies when you're using a pressure canner is the amount of time that you put it in the pressure canner. That's it. Everything else, the process is exactly the same. So remember that. And this, the way this is done is you cook the beef, you drain off as much of the fat as possible, and you can see there's even got a little fat layer here at the bottom where there's a little bit of moisture that came from the meat in the actual cooking process. But this, I've ate this before, it's perfectly fine. It tastes the same. Ground beef does lose some of the texture when you can it. You can tell when you put it in your mouth when you're chewing it up. It's not as how would I explain? All right. Pressure can ground beef is kind of like the meat from Taco Bell. Okay, that's kind of what it tastes like, the so-called ground beef from Taco Bell. So there is a texture difference, and there's a slight taste difference. Not a whole lot. It does not render it inedible whatsoever. It just gives it a bit of a different flavor texture, but the nutrition's still there. It's still ground beef. This is so easy to do. And on a lighter note, before I sign off of this video, anybody out there that has a canner and has jars and I'm just scared of this, I'm scared of that. Look, if you're going to mess up, now's the time to mess up when you can still get more food to replace it, okay? The way things are going right now, the last thing you want to do is attempt to can something and take a chance on messing it up when you can't replace that food, okay? Number one, now's the time to do it. Number two, it is so stupid easy. Like literally the only way you can mess it up is if you mess it up on purpose, like for real. It's that easy. I mean, all you have to do is follow the instructions. It is so easy, and all the instructions are online. You can get a ball canning cookbook and do it. I mean, like it's falling uphill. I mean, there's no reason to be timid about pressure canning food. I mean, as long as your pressure canner's in decent, halfway decent shape, you're good. If you got an All-American, I don't think you can hurt an All-American. I like the All-Americans because there are no moving parts other than the pressure gauge, and I just use this as a guide. I use the weighted gauge to let me know if everything's good. But there's no gasket. It's a metal-on-metal contact with just a little bit of olive oil or vegetable oil to keep it lubed, and you're good. But yeah, if you've got a canner and you're not using it, especially for your meats, you're crazy. Because this stuff in the freezer, they say 6 months. I sometimes let it go a year, and I still eat it, and it's perfectly fine. Even if it's got a little bit of frostbite on it, or freezer burn, you can cut that part off if you want to, but there's still nutrition in it. But what I normally do is I'll buy, oh my God, a crap load of ground beef and just fill the freezer, and I have it portioned out in 1 and 2 pound portions depending on the meal. And whenever anything in the freezer gets close to 6 months old, I pull it out and can it. Simple as that. I try to go through my canned goods, or the stuff that I can, on a regular basis, just to keep it replenished and restocked. It's like I'm going to do some more ground beef here pretty soon, some more chili, spaghetti, things like that, because it's the perfect way to keep ground beef in your repertoire without having a massive freezer, full of stuff, and then having to rely on the generator or rely on a solar generator, things like that. But if you haven't canned and you're scared or you're intimidated of canning, don't be. Dude, putting gas in your car is harder than canning food, for real. Like, legitimately, there's more danger to you screwing something up by putting gasoline in your car than it is canning food. Canning food is so easy. Don't let it be intimidating. For real, seriously, don't. I did find a couple of cases of jars yesterday. That brings me up to 4 cases of empty jars, so I am going to be canning something here right around the corner. I'm thinking I may do, I don't know. I may do some more spaghetti or chili, beef stew, maybe chicken stew. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to do something. Yeah, but I'll keep you posted. It'll be a good video. I'm not going to turn the camera on and talk you through how to wipe the jar off, how to turn your stove on. You know where the knob is, okay? Come on, people. I'm not going to make a 2-hour-long video teaching you how to or excuse me, a 4-hour-long video, because that's about how long it takes to do a batch. You got an hour and a half, and there's processing time, there's cooling down time. I'm not going down that road, okay? I'm going to talk you through it, and I'm going to probably do a bunch of little short videos. Hey, this is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. I want to be able to do a canning video and not require you to be able to sit on your couch for an hour with a bowl of popcorn to see the whole thing. I would like to be able to do a video of me pressure canning ground beef and condense it to all the parts that you need to see. All the important stuff, none of the fluff, just the important stuff, and it be 15, maybe 20 minutes long max, with actual video footage of the complete process, start to finish. So that's what I'm shooting for. Now that I found some jars, I'll get that stuff started up for you guys, and we'll go from there. But Lady Caska, do not be scared to can. This is easy. It is stupid easy. Plus, you're getting this stuff dirt cheap because you're buying it in bulk. And I can't put more praise on canning food than I do right now. It's awesome. If you have any questions and you want videos that go above and beyond, there's a lady you need to check out. It's called Guildbrook Farms. You've heard me say it before. Guildbrook, Guildbrook Farms. Go to her canning playlist. Start at the beginning. I think her first video is called Canning 101, and she literally goes, like, the only thing she doesn't show is how to manufacture your own canner, but she details everything. It's a very, very awesome channel. You guys, if you aren't subscribed there, you need to be. But that's where I learned all my canning skills, was from watching her. And I watched several others, but I felt like her style and her videos were way easy to follow, and I just started canning with her, and I still do. All right, that's it for this video, Lady Caska. I hope this helped you out. And also a reminder to guys, tonight is my second live episode of What Would Ghosts Do? We've got a scenario that was submitted to us by the Milkmaid, and my special guest host tonight, because Backwoods and Prepping had a prior commitment, so Prepper Tribe graciously decided to step in for Backwoods, and he's going to cover for him tonight on my show. It starts at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. It'll be What Would Ghosts Do with special guest host Prepper Tribe, and we are going to be diving down the rabbit hole that the Milkmaid sent us. So I hope you guys tune in for that. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you later.